Hello and welcome to the demonstration video of the 2016 Burstner Nexxo T690. I'll walk you around the outside and then we'll move on to the inside. So we'll start with the cab. So to open the bonnet on these, the catch is just here. You've got your blinds for blanking off for the evenings. So they draw across and it's a magnetic strip that attaches there. It's the same on the windscreen, so you pinch those two together, draw them across, and the same happens on the opposing side, so that there's a magnetic strip that keeps them together. There is a section that makes way for the rear view mirror. While we're here, you've got your tyre pressures displayed on this pillar here. But you're better referring to the actual tyres themselves, as these have higher pressure tyres fitted. Just while we're in the cab, I'll just show you. This can lift up to receive a mobile phone, so it's spring loaded like that. So you put the base of the phone into there, top into there, and then press this locker in there, and it'll keep the mobile phone in position while you're driving. Just make sure that's in before you press this back down. There's a switch just to the right of the gear lever there, and that will allow you to switch the stereo on while you're parked without the ignition on. So just under the car, under the bonnet then on the cab, we've got engine coolant, you've got brake fluid there, oil fill, dipstick, washer fill is just here. If you ever need to jump start this vehicle, so the positive goes onto that little tab which is just down there, it does have a cover, and the negative or the earth goes onto this little tab here. That's to jump start the vehicle, because the battery is actually in the floor of the cab underneath the passenger's side, where the feet of the passenger would go. Okay, so as we walk around the passenger side of the vehicle, we've got a locker here. So what happens is the mains cable attaches onto this here. This is your water tank, so you fill the water tank just by unscrewing that and putting a hose pipe into there. You've got access to the water tank should you need to sterilise it or see into the tank, and you just unscrew that there. Just make sure that that's tightly threaded on there, because otherwise when you're filling it can leak out into here. To empty the tank, it's that nozzle on the top there, so that's to empty the fresh water tank, and that just pours out literally underneath the skirt here. So for winterization purposes, you're turning that nozzle and that empties the tank down. In there as well we have a drain down for the boiler. Now that's this block here, that's thermostatic. So what happens is, to close the valve for the boiler, so this is to drain the boiler down, that's now in the open position. So you turn that diamond shaped nozzle around like that, and that closes it, and you need to push that little blue button in, which is just down there. Push that in, and then that's the valve for the boiler fully sealed off. If it senses that the temperature reaches 6 degrees without the boiler being switched on, it will automatically drain all the water out of the boiler as a protection against frost damage. There's also an excess drain for the pipes that are leading to the boiler, which needs to be drained down, and that's done by this little yellow tab here. That is closed, so that will retain the water. That is open, so that will drain all the excess out from the pipe work. Next to that locker we have the flue for the boiler. So whenever you're burning gas, so if you've got the boiler switched to using gas, it'll chimney through this here, so the fumes from the boiler will escape here. So you've got, in cold weather you will see steam rising from here, there's nothing to worry about, so that needs to be kept clean and free of debris. Next to that we've got the external shower point, which uses this hose here. and that little nozzle on the end there goes into this here. Just push that in, and that collar attaches it. To release that, you just push that collar forward, and then that releases the hose. That switches the pump on for the external hose, and then that adjusts the temperature. So it's useful for dog owners, or if you've got dirty shoes or wellies, then you want to wash those off. That's the external shower point. Underneath the shower point is the waste tank drain down point. So there's a little key that you need that goes onto the end of this, and then you're turning it clockwise to close the tap, anti-clockwise to open it, and then the wastewater will come out of this tap here, and obviously there's an indication inside to tell you how full that waste tank is. Next to that, we've just got the vents for the fridge, so it draws cool air in here, expels warm air at the top. Just important that that's kept free of debris again. You can buy winter covers for those that'll stop wind and drafts getting through here in windy and bad conditions. So that's just the vents for the fridge, top and bottom. We've got access to the garage on both sides. So we've got the carpets in there. These are anchor points here, so they can be moved. You just unscrew those sort of quarter of a turn. They will move up and down, so they'll move along this rail here if you want to anchor things down. You've got a couple on that side as well. These cushions here are just required for the bed. You've got an awning winder there, so that's the top one is the awning winder. That is a pole that is required to tension the fabric on the awning once the awning's out. It's like a telescopic thing that's spring loaded. So on the back panel we've got the where the camera's mounted. If it's really wet conditions, you will get water dripping from that, so it'll distort the vision when it's wet on the lens. So then we've got access through to the garage on the other side. You've got your toolkit, so there's a jack in there. Don't think this has a spare wheel, but it's got an inflation kit which is in the door pocket of the driver's side. Yeah, there's no spare wheel on this, so you need the inflation and repair kit, which is, as I say, in the driver's side door pocket. There's a main socket there as well. Next to the garage door we've got the gas locker, so 2 gas bottles in there. It does need a pigtail that goes onto the end of the regulator, which is there. So the pigtail will screw onto that on the top. We don't leave them in because they can go out of date. They need to be kept in good condition, the pigtails. So that's the tube that comes off that regulator and then goes onto your gas bottles. Next to that we've got the external gas supply. So if you've got a barbecue or a gas heater outside, so that's that. What happens with that, it's very similar to the shower point. You just take that off, and there's a sort of bayonet fitting that goes into the end of that, and then that collar attaches it. To release it, you push that collar forward, and then that will allow you to release the attachment that goes into the end of there. That switches the gas supply on and off. So next one along is the toilet cassette. So there's an indication on the toilet itself to tell you when that's full. When it needs emptying, you open this door up by pressing these buttons in here. That reveals the toilet cassette, and to get that out you just lift that up, slide the cassette out, and then to empty that, taking that funnel, unscrew the end, take the cap off, pour away the waste which is in here. As you're doing so, press that button in, it lets air in as the liquid is pouring out the other end, and lets the liquid escape in one flow rather than it glugging, so it'll just letting the air in. To put the chemical into here, which is required, you slide that back, open up this blade here, and then pour the chemical into there with a little bit of water in the bottom, and then that's the cassette ready to use again once you've rinsed it out after you've emptied it. To put this back in, you've got to make sure that that is closed, so that when you push the cassette back in, it can be received with that being straight. There is a handle on these So when you're taking it to the waste disposal point, that extends, and then there's wheels on the side to wheel it along. So that concludes the outside demonstration. I'll just move on to the inside where I'll show you the controls for everything that goes on the inside of the vehicle. Starting with the cab then, so to swivel the seats round, both seats swivel round, you pull this lever here, and the same on the driver's side, and that allows you to spin the seats around. This dinette area will make a bed, so what you're doing is you're dropping the table down to the same level as this seat in here. Take off that section of the leg there and attach the detachable table to the lower rail just there, and then what happens is this table then makes a base for this area here, and then the extra cushions which are in the garage bridge this gap here. I'll make that up so that you can see it made up, and you just slide underneath there. There's a slider, you'll just see, and you slide that base slightly out, and then that creates your bed at the front. Television brackets just on this here, so your television goes there, and then just above the door here we've got the control panel. So this on and off button here, so that switches, you won't get any 12-volt appliances working without that being switched on, so you've got an illumination there to tell you that that is the case. This here is telling you about your batteries. I'll just close this door, then we can get a better light. So these are your batteries. If you press this one here, it's your front battery, so it's your engine battery, and you can probably see the needle moving over there to tell you what the voltage is, and that's your leisure battery. We're not plugged in now, so it might seem slightly low, but that's your reading for those. That's to warn you that your voltage for your battery is low and your battery needs charging up. That tells you that you're plugged in, should we be plugged in, which at the moment we're not. Next one along is your fresh water. So if you press that button there, if there was any water in it, that needle would come across and give you a reading for the tank, and then that's your waste water. It has just been emptied, so there might just be some excess water on the probe that goes into the tank too. So it is actually the tap's open on it, so I don't think there's anything in there. That switches your water pump on, so you won't get any water coming out of your taps unless that is switched on. On this model it uses micro switches inside the taps, so you need your pump switched on over there, and you probably hear the pump runs and there's a little micro switch inside the tap, so the pump will only run when the tap is open. When you first put water in it, you will need to purge the system, so you fill up your water tank, switch the tap on and wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap. Then you know that all the pipes are full of water and you're ready to use the taps. You need to do that on the hot side and the cold side, because on the hot side what it does, it'll come from the fresh water tank through the pipework, fill up the boiler, and then out of your tap. So you don't switch your boiler on unless you've purged the water through from the fresh water tank, filled the boiler, and then you can switch your boiler on. Same thing with the hob. When you first put your gas on, you do need to just switch your hob on and wait until the hob lights. So you might just take a couple of minutes with your ignition pressed and the tap open, so that you know that the gas has got through all the pipe work and it's bled all the air out, and you've got a pure flow of gas coming to your appliances. Just while we're in here, this device here, when you're filling up your freshwater tank, if you clip that onto the nozzle where I showed you where to fill the fresh water, it just stops any spillage going into the locker where you're filling up the water. So if any spillages happen, it just directs it out onto the ground. So that's what that is, and you've got your plugs in there for all the sinks. So moving on into the bathroom, toilet system. To flush the toilet, you're just pressing that blue button there, and when it's full, when the cassette's full, there's a little illumination to tell you that it's full there. To use the loo, there's a little blade underneath there. This lever here, that grey lever there, you move that side to side, and that opens and closes the blade that I showed you on the cassette. So obviously keep it open, use the toilet, press the flush button and then close it back up. You don't want to be travelling with that open, otherwise you'll get the waste sloshing around in the toilet itself, in the toilet bowl. What happens with this one, to create the shower space, open that lever there and the whole of this slides across, and then you've got your shower point, your shower cubicle rather, so that that can be used without getting all the toilet and all the sink and everything wet. So just in this cupboard above the fridge freezer, that is the spanner that I referred to, and that you need to drain down the waste. So that goes onto that metal winder that I was talking about. So that's that part. It's in that envelope there. And then you've got your instruction manuals and service history, etc. And there's, I don't know if you can see, it's bad light, but there's some paperwork in there. Okay, so the controls on the fridge. So this, we've got the fridge here with the freezer box in. So the freezer box, you can actually remove it. If you open the door, you can slide that whole freezer box out, so you can have it all fridge. The controls for that, you're basically just switching it on here with this button. Okay, so you select your power source here, whether it be mains, electric, if you're plugged into mains, gas if you're off grid and you're not plugged into mains, 12 volt if you are in transit. So with the 12 volt, you need to get it cold first, you know, at home or on gas. Or you can select the automatic button, which is one I recommend, and then it'll select the most relevant power source. So it'll look for electric first, then gas, then 12 volts. So if you've got this A illuminated here, it's automatic. It will automatically select the most relevant power source. Then you've got your temperature control. So you select this that's relevant to the ambient temperature. If it's really hot outside, then use that to increase the power of the fridge. So if it's a really cold day, then you only probably need it on this, because it'll end up freezing up. So that's why you've got a temperature select button there. Just next to the fridge here, we have the controls for the heating. So that's that Truma control panel. To switch that on, you select the middle button. I know it's a bit flickery on there, but I'll quickly run through. So this first one here, as it's flashing, is your temperature. So if you select 20 degrees, which is roughly room temperature, then press the button again. Next one along is your water. So you've got Eco, which is 40 degrees, Hot, which is 60 degrees, or Boost, which will take all the power from the heating of the van and switch it to the heating of your water. Just switch these off for now. Next one along, obviously we've got this flashing here. That's your power select. So you've got gas only, mix of low wattage electric and gas, mix of high wattage electric and gas, electric only on low wattage, electric only on high wattage. You can select the fan to just run as you want it to, but the thermostat will, if you've got it set to a temperature of 20 degrees, the fan will run at a speed which is relevant to how quickly it needs to heat up. That one is a timer, this one here that's flashing, so you can set it to come on at a certain time, off at a certain time. That sets your clock, and you've got a settings menu here. I won't go into that now, but there is an instruction manual for it, but the basics are just along the top here. Switch it off. If you want to come out of any menu, so if you're, let's say you're in there, you want to come out of it, you're just pressing this back button, and then to switch it off, press and hold the middle button, and that turns it off. So I've made the bed up here. You can see that this cushion here bridges that gap, and it's got a little leg on it there supporting it, which is hinged, and then you use that cushion to bridge that gap there. and there's a little board there that bridges the gap that cushion sits on, which is the backing piece for that there, and you can see that the table here is bridging the gap for that cushion there. This cushion here has got a little lugs that sit into those cutouts there, and that's what keeps that in position. So that concludes the demonstration. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those on the day you collect, and I look forward to seeing you when you come and collect your new motorhome.